must admit that it's very impressive to see you all. It shows that Krishna consciousness is growing here very nicely. And I was asking Bhagavat Ashraya Prabhu, and he just told me that this is just the core group. And there are also a few hundred other devotees here. And that gives us great joy to see that the movement is growing. And also another impressive thing here is to see that it's a mixture of Indian devotees and Western devotees, Australian devotees. Many a times we see that there are lots of devotees, but very few Western participation. Should I call it Western? Is Australia considered to be West? Okay. Or Far East. Or maybe farthest West. And there was a time, early days, when it was all Western, Americans, Europeans, Australians, and very few Indians, practically negligible number of Indians are participating. And Prabhupada used to lament actually. I heard Prabhupada lamenting. Prabhupada used to say that everyone is coming, but the Indians are not coming. That was Prabhupada's disappointment in a way. Everyone is coming, but the Indians are not coming. And few of us who came, because we happen to be Indian, received a lot of Srila Prabhupada's mercy. And Prabhupada would be very pleased to see so many Indians are now coming forward to participate in Krishna consciousness movement. Now, the scene has become, it has reversed in a way. Now in many cases and in many places, mostly Indians are known whites. A few years back I was in London. They have a thing called Patron Council, Patrons Dinner. There were about 500 families, and they had a grand arrangement, big marquee with first-class arrangement, and 500 families. And when I was speaking, I was making the same point, that there was a time when Prabhupada used to lament that everyone is coming, but the Indians are not coming. So Prabhupada would be very pleased to see that there are today so many Indians have become involved in London. But at the same time, Prabhupada will also ask, where are the Englishmen? We are in England, but where are the Englishmen? When Prabhupada was in Africa, Prabhupada had some of his disciples go ahead of time and arrange the program for him. And one evening, they got all the many important Indians from Nairobi to come and meet Srila Prabhupada. And after the meeting, after they all left, Prabhupada called his disciples and he asked them Did I come to Africa to meet the Indians? Where are the Africans? So the specialty of this movement is that it is an international movement. The growth of this movement lies in the local participation. The real indication of its growth will be signified, will be justified by the involvement of the local people. Therefore, I will request that the Indians, those who are involved, those who are becoming involved in Krishna consciousness, please make it a point to preach to the local people, preach to the Australians and bring them. And just consider one Indian Srila Prabhupada. That's what Prabhupada also mentioned at that time. I am one Indian. I have spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. What will happen if all the Indians become involved in spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world? Now, why Prabhupada was so emphatic about the Indians? Because by Krishna's arrangement, when one is born in India, he comes very close to Vedic culture. It's not Indian culture. What we are promoting, what we are practicing is not something Indian. It is beyond this world. It is spiritual. It is transcendental. It doesn't belong to any particular place or any particular group of people as such. In this respect, Prabhupada used to give the example, the sun may rise in the east, but can anybody say that the sun belongs to the east? Sun rises everywhere. Sun doesn't belong to any particular place in this material nature, in this planet. Sun belongs to all the places. Similarly, Krishna consciousness belongs to everybody. Whoever accepts it, his life is successful. That is the real greatness and the essence of the spiritual aspect of Krishna consciousness. Does Krishna consciousness belong to any particular clan or caste or any particular space? No. Krishna consciousness belongs to every soul, every living entity. What is Krishna consciousness? Krishna consciousness is becoming aware of Krishna, becoming aware of our relationship with Krishna. Now Krishna is God and all living entities are his parts and parcels. Therefore, does everybody have a birthright, a natural right to be related to Krishna, be connected to Krishna? Yes. Not only the human beings, even the animals, birds, reptiles, insects, trees and plants, all have the right to become connected to Krishna. It's only a matter of becoming properly situated. So, Hare Krishna Maharaj, Veda.vedavyasa Priya Maharaj ki. Every single living entity, since it's a part and parcel of Krishna, has the right by Srila Prabhupada, and they committed themselves completely to this mission of Srila Prabhupada, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And then from America it started to spread. From America, England, from England to France, Germany, Switzerland, Italy, Spain. It started to spread. And then Srila Prabhupada took his Western disciples to India. And he started to spread this movement in India. Prabhupada initially tried to spread Krishna consciousness in India, but Prabhupada himself said that he didn't succeed. The one person that he even initiated at that time, even he was not really lined up with Srila Prabhupada. Now Prabhupada took his American disciples and started the propagation of Krishna consciousness there. And Prabhupada, and the response was remarkable. People started to think that since the Americans have accepted it, it must be good. It's not that everybody thought that since Americans have accepted it, it's very good. Many people even started to suspect that there must be something wrong. These people must be CIA. I remember when I joined, people used to openly challenge and tell us, you must be CIA. But Prabhupada very earnestly responded to that point. I remember once some people came and asked Srila Prabhupada, in a kind of genuine way, they asked Prabhupada that he was actually a well-wisher a friend of Srila Prabhupada, acquainted of Srila Prabhupada, a very important person. And he asked Srila Prabhupada, is it possible that some CIS can be involved in this? And Prabhupada's response was so penetrating. Prabhupada said, look, why the CIAs would join us? Because when you are dressed like a devotee, then everyone's eye is on you. When an American person, or an European person is dressed in devotee clothes, shaved up, tilak, then everybody will look at him. Now, does the CIA want to operate? Do the espionage work go on like that when everybody's eye is on him? No. They will naturally kind of hide themselves and work in a way that nobody will suspect them. But the moment you dress up like a devotee, and if you're a Westerner, then you are right on the spot. In everybody's attention is drawn towards you. And then another point that Srila Prabhupada made at that time was that why the CIA would join the movement when it is so hard to practice. Like you have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, take your bath, and then attend Mangal Aratik and follow the 4 regulative principles. A CIA, they are CIA because they want to money and they want to enjoy. They'll come and live in big hotels and wine and dine with all kinds of important people and bribe the people and get their work done. And Prabhupada then told him, why don't you come and stay with us and see it for yourself? How this life is like. Unless and until one is committed, he cannot become a devotee. Unless and until one is genuine with his commitment to Krishna consciousness or spiritual life, he won't be able to survive. Eating Krishna prasad, for a devotee of course it's fun, but for non-devotees it's austerity. Eating vegetarian food, no tea, no coffee, what to speak of alcohol and other drugs. and lead a life of a celibate. Anyway, but still that misconception was quite prevalent in India at that time. But Krishna consciousness movement started to spread, and that's how Srila Prabhupada established ISKCON in India, through his Western disciples. And Prabhupada used to call them his dancing white elephants. And when Srila Prabhupada was here, you can't imagine how glorious this movement was. I presume most of you you joined later. How many of you were acquainted with Krishna consciousness movement before 85? Please raise your hands. Just one, two. Okay, just two, three. How was the movement at that time? Australia was booming. Australia. There were hundreds of devotees. Hundreds of devotees. And Krishna consciousness movement was spreading like wildfire. And Australia was actually a small time. Krishna consciousness, but the big time Krishna consciousness expansion was taking place in America, Europe, and in this way the movement, say for example, Brisbane temple of course was small at that time. There was very few devotees. I remember that there was this small 2-story building was there in Brisbane. But Brisbane did not really grow so effectively because Murray-Lumba was so close by. And the community, how many devotees were there in Murray-Lumba at that time? But more than 200 devotees living there. Sydney had also a lot of devotees. Melbourne, Adelaide. Adelaide, of course, also was not that big. And hundreds of Australian devotees were traveling around the world collecting Lakshmi. So they had some business going, painting business, and there was paraphernalia business. Anyway, it's nice to see that things are developing nicely in Australia. Previously, at some point, our movement had gone through some difficulties. Actually, that difficulty was inevitable. Prabhupada himself said that when an Acharya leaves the planet, there is bound to be crisis. At that time, at least I thought that Prabhupada is saying that, but that may have happened in the past, but that won't happen in ISKCON. Because everything was going on so nicely, and Prabhupada structured the institution so wonderfully. The authority structure of ISKCON was so beautifully established, the movement was growing, the leaders were powerful in their own right, with their own ability, they were making this movement grow and taking care of everything in a very, very effective way, very wonderful way. But then we saw how that statement of Srila Prabhupada became a reality. When an Acharya leaves the planet, there is bound to be crisis. An Acharya like Srila Prabhupada left the planet, and how can we expect that there won't be crisis? And this difficulty that ISKCON had gone through actually establishes Srila Prabhupada's greatness. And the important thing is that although we had gone through some difficulties, but ISKCON is still going strong. And it's growing and it will continue to grow. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's prediction that Krishna consciousness movement will spread in every town and village will become a reality in course of time. So, thank you all very much, and I feel very happy. I was very tired. In Sydney and in Melbourne, they took care of him very nicely. And the result was that I got very little sleep. There was many programs, many devotees to meet, and I was already quite jet lagged, and today also I'm quite tired. So, but I'm very happy, and this evening there will be a program. And so anyway, today and tomorrow I'll be here. So I look forward to a lot of your association. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Veda.vedavyasa Priya Maharaj, will you?
It's your day, Maharaj. They expect you to speak. Well, I'm also feeling tired and sick. No. I came yesterday in the evening. Yeah, I was in Papua New Guinea, north of Australia. They also took great care of me. I have been sick otherwise too. Old age and inheritance of diabetes compiles together. Well, I have seen progress in congregational preaching in Brisbane, and I'm very happy. Things are moving towards, what you have just described as the future of ISKCON. And the householders are taking great interest. And they will help me to fulfill the dream of Srila Prabhupada. So I'm also enthused, so it makes me come every year. And I'll try to, help in whatever way I can. ISKCON has bright future everywhere. That's no doubt. Only thing is that time makes it realized. Well, we have to work according to the time. The same old formula Srila Prabhupada has given, that if we stick to his original plan without making any additions or subtractions, then surely it will come victorious. And ISKCON, new ideas according to time, place and circumstances that do not support the principles laid by Srila Prabhupada will not work. So we have to just be careful to know the desire of Srila Prabhupada, and we have to work according to his outlined program. I remember when I saw the video that Prabhupada opened up Melbourne Temple in 1975. He was so much deep in meditation and reverence and thankfulness to the Gaurnita deities that in your country Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is adventing. You are so fortunate that Gaunita is bestowing their mercy here. He went on to say that all the Indo-European stock was Aryan, originally civilized, and they always seek to the perfection, even away from the Vedic periphery. The perfection is achieved if they follow Krishna consciousness instantly. So, Srila Prabhupada had a great hope by installing Gaur-Nitai deities that the potency of Krishna consciousness will be so much spread like wildfire. And the same formula, if we take into mind, things will manifest very, very quickly. So, Srila Prabhupada's words are as potent as ever, and we simply remain faithful to it, and the result will be achieved. So, I also thank you very much. I have a little fever also, that's why. I'm trying to keep myself. Oh, I just came from an air-conditioned car, I forgot. No, I did have. So anyway, so I also thank you very much. Bhagavat Ashraya.
I asked Bhagavat Ashraya Prabhu, how often does he give classes? And he told me just about once a month. I thought that was unfair. Bhagavat Ashraya Prabhu is a very senior devotee who committed himself at a very young age to Srila Prabhupada's mission and achieved a lot during those early days when this movement was spreading like wildfire. Bhagavat Ashraya Prabhu also spent a lot of time in UK, and actually I met him there only. He used to be the temple president of Soho Street Temple in the mid-80s. And nowadays it seems that Bhagavat Ashraya Prabhu has taken a little back seat. Should we allow him to take a back seat? We want him on a driver's seat, right?
My wife doesn't. When I drive, she's very nice.
Don't tell me that you're that henpecked.
I mean, when I
Actually, Mother Sarvamangala is such an inspiration for all of us. She has been such a wonderful devotee. I remember when Prabhupada was in Vrindavan, Mother Sarvamangala was also in Vrindavan, serving so nicely. So these are the committed soldiers in Srila Prabhupada's army. So let's hear the words of wisdom and become enlightened by the wonderful association of Bhagavat Ashraya Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Bhagavat Ashraya.
Just from the things both Maharajas were saying, I thought of two things. Firstly, sometime in the early 90s, I was in England. I was doing some work with a devotee by the name of Janaka Rishi. I don't know if anyone knows of Janaka Rishi. He runs an organization in Oxford where he's actually has arranged for quite a number of devotees to do PhDs in Vaishnava studies. But in those days, in the early 90s, he was the European Minister for Communications. A very, very active, dynamic person, Janaka Rishi. I always liked Janaka Rishi. He's an Irishman, a very unorthodox person. He taught me the principle that it's easy to get forgiveness than permission. And that's pretty much the way he always did things. He just originated programs, very original programs. And he also worked with a godbrother of mine, godbrother of ours, Rancho Prabhu. And Rancho was, at that time, working in an organization called the International Consultancy on Education and Religion. And he was the Hindu expert for that organization, but it was run by a man he was a Christian man. He was, his name was Martin Parma. Actually, Rancho first met Martin Parma as a young man when Rancho was preaching in Manchester. And they became very firm friends, and they still are to this day. And Martin Parma became a very influential man. He's a close advisor of Prince Philip on environmental issues and cultural issues. The point I'm getting at is that it was probably 1992, 93 maybe, and Janaka Rishi Prabhu had organized a gathering of all of the people that he was training as communications representatives all over Europe. And by this time, Russia had opened up, so there were devotees coming from all over what had been the USSR and the Central European countries of Hungary and Czechoslovakia and so on. So it was a large number of devotees. He brought them all to England for a conference, and one of the items on the agenda was we visited Martin Parma at his place in Manchester. And this is following from what Bhakti True Maharaj said about the crises that occurred in ISKCON. And Martin Palmer's a very forthright, strong person. Doesn't beat about the bush with anything. Gets straight to the point with whatever he's talking about. So there was probably 40, 50 devotees sitting there with him, and he said, I know all about ISKCON. He said, I probably know more about ISKCON scandals than you do. And he looked at Rancho at the time, because Rancho always kept him informed. He said, I've read Monkey on a Stick. He said, I've read it all, I've heard all the stories. And devotees were a little bit embarrassed. But he was very smart, man. He said, but don't be embarrassed. He said, if you read the Acts of the Apostles, you'll find that in the 30 or 40 years after Jesus left and the disciples were trying to establish Christianity, he said, there were scandals you wouldn't believe. He said nothing in ISKCON was anything like what happened then. But then he said, but now you see, this Christianity is spread all over the world 2,000 years later. And that 2,000 years, most of that 2,000 years was with very difficult technologies to do it with. Monks used to go out just with nothing. Just leave the monasteries and head in whatever direction they were told to go, with nothing. So although we see that there are troublesome things happen, this brings me to Veda.vedavyasa Priya Maharaj's point about if we stick to what Srila Prabhupada gave us, there'll be success. And I'm reminded of the principle of team sports. If anyone has ever had anything to do with team sports, you have your game plan and you stick to it no matter what happens. And the opposition team, they'll study your game plan and they'll study it very well. And this is actually an art of war also. Your enemy will study what you do and know how you do it very well, just to find the point where there's a weakness or there's some flaw in your plan or some weak link in the team. And they will do everything they can to make you give up your game plan. And as soon as they've broken you in the performance of your plan, then they'll overtake you. So when there was ever any, especially in 1975, when all the brainwashing allegations were coming against the devotees, Prabhupada was very strong on this point that yes, this is proof that we're having success. That now there's powerful opposition coming. Now that was visible opposition. The type of opposition that we're up against is actually invisible. The real opposition is invisible. The real opposition is Kali himself and all his chelas. And there is a very definite plan to do everything possible to destroy the Sankirtan movement. That's a fact. But if we follow the team principles, and actually Krishna consciousness is a team activity. It's not that I'm all right, Jack. I just look after myself. Of course, you have to look after yourself. But we really look after ourselves so that we can be able team members and be of assistance to the other devotees. So if we stick, Maharaj, Veda.vedavyasa Priya Maharaj is perfectly right. If we stick very closely to the simple program that Srila Prabhupada gave us, and we are prepared to act as a team, to become a team of devotees working in this part of the world, then by our actions here and now, everything can be very bright. What to speak of the future? Everything can be very bright now. So there were just two thoughts that came to mind listening to Maharaj, Bhakti Charu Maharaj and Veda.vedavyasa Priya Maharaj. I'm a little embarrassed to be sitting here, but nonetheless happy to see them. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.